morning, everybody. I'm Amelia Tomasicchio, CEO at Cryptonomist, and I'm very happy today to moderate this panel during this first NFT Expo organized by the Nemesis with high-level speakers. So I'm going now to introduce our guest of this panel. So lawyer Lars Schlichting from Switzerland, Eddie Travia of Consilium. Hi, Lars. And Grant Blansdell of Copernic Space. Hi, everyone. So the first question will be very general. I would like you to introduce yourself for our audience so we can get to know each other more. If you want to start, Lars, then we do in chronological order.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Amelia said, my name is Lars Schlichting. I'm a lawyer based in Switzerland, working for the crypto scene and blockchain since almost 5 years now. I was a former regulator, so my background is mainly financial, but I work with a lot of clients, I will say, in all fields of the blockchain and more also with NFT.
Eddie?
Eddie, I'm the CEO of Consilium. I started in this space in 2013, initially with a Bitcoin incubator, then with a company that continued to invest in blockchain companies. We listed our shares on the stock exchange in London called Aquis back in 2015, and we're also listed in the US on the OTCQB. And we have been investing in a lot of blockchain projects, advising projects, and lately doing venture building in the blockchain space.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grant Blaisdell. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Copernic Space. I've also am the co-founder of CoinFirm, which is a global leader in analytics and anti-money laundering for crypto. Copernic Space is a platform that solves actually two main problems in the space economy. One is that there's no marketplace for entities to engage and acquire space assets. And the other one is that there's limited financing for space ventures. So among other things, we use NFTs in various ways to apply to the space economy.
I would like to remember to you all, as you can see on the screen, you can use the private chat to ask questions to our speakers. So I will read them all during this live stream. So I will start with the first question to you guys, and then you can jump in the conversation if you want to speak. So Lars, what are the hottest topics about NFT and regulation? What's your client ask you the most?
Well, I will say that the hottest topics right now is the fact that the regulation doesn't recognize NFT. They have some problem to understand what you can do with NFT, because honestly, that's something which we are starting to use right now. We started with arts, but we can use it also for many different topics. I had a client who wanted to do the NFTs for students, so that the student can pay the cost of their education, and you bet a little bit on their future success. So that now, if you do something like this, you have all the question about the personalities rights. Can I sell something about my person? For arts topics, the question is, what does the NFT represent? So we are issuing a token which represents a piece of art. Perfect. But what can I do with this piece of art? What are still the rights of the artist? Even if I have the token, the artist may still have some rights, and we have to declare or decide what the token represents itself, and to put it in the agreement, as we see on the platform which are selling the NFT, where we have to explain what are the rights connected to the token. And at the end of the story, from a legal perspective, what is very, very important with NFT is exactly this. So we have to understand the qualification of the token, the rights embedded in the token, and this is the agreement that we have when we issue the token, when the artist issue the token to sell it to the marketplace.
And for you, Grant and Eddie, what are the most topics you do consulting of?
I'll let Eddie go first because I don't do much consulting. So I'll
from a regulation perspective.
From a regulatory perspective,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I look at it in two different ways. So I originally come out of digital media space, and that's how I got into blockchain tech and what eventually became a use case around NFTs. So, you know, if you're dealing with music and things like that, you have certain aspects around royalties. And back to what Lars was saying is, well, how do you really transfer the realities, the legal realities that exist in the traditional space into digital format in some sort of effective manner, right? On the flip side of that, you know, with how we're applying it to the space industry, our NFTs actually represent data licenses and access to that data set, in this case, satellite data. So for us, weirdly enough, it's actually more simple for us to apply NFTs to satellite data than it seems to be with other entities I collaborate with, like musicians or fine art artists, which comes back to, you know, some of these early stage questions, which we had is like, okay, but what are the real rights here? Like, what can you actually do with it, et cetera? Whereas in the space data case, it's very simple. You know, you're buying a license, you're getting an NFT. You don't need to know it's an NFT, and you don't really know it's an NFT. You're just reaping the benefits off it being given to you in that format, which allows you to access that data directly with full ownership of your rights embedded within that access into that data set. So my personal opinion has been for a long time, even before I met Eddie, and I've known Eddie for years at this point, which has been, you know, the real core of usage when, you know, crypto, or in this case NFTs are actually successful, is when you're going to have millions and millions and millions of people using them without knowing that they're using them. And I think that's kind of the goal at the end of the day. You're always going to have this revolutionary element that's going to stick within the arts and different use cases of, hey, these are collectibles and they come in this, or we're packaging fine art into an NFT format. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be the scalable, true way it gets applied into the digital economy, in my view.
And Eddie, do you think a stronger regulation can increase the NFT adoption?
Yeah, I mean, stronger is a difficult word to use with regulation. I would say regulation certainty in general always helps people to come into the sector. And that's something that we have seen in the past with crypto, of course. I mean, as we know, there has been a lot of regulatory uncertainty around, for example, the token sales, which was kind of the first mega use case of blockchain and tokens back in 2017-18. And you know, when the dust has settled, we realize that yes, there are many regulatory issues around that. Again, with the NFT, everything started rather quickly. I think overall the community is quite surprised to see such a enthusiasm, let's say, for this technology, and the fact that actually NFT is bringing probably crypto closer to global adoption or mass adoption than anything that has been done in the past, which is very interesting. The problem with regulation with NFTs, again, in a way, it happened before with crypto, is that NFT is not one single concept, right? Like Lars was saying, you know, NFT can be, as he was saying, maybe a bet on the future of someone. It can be an art piece, it can be a music, it can be a financial asset, and therefore you cannot put NFT in a box and then try to regulate it. An NFT has to be regulated in the context of a much wider environment or the ecosystem in which the NFT is actually being traded or exchanged, right? In that case, it's quite different from the fungible tokens, because it's much easier to identify an NFT and make it something else, or something similar maybe to something that is already exists in the physical world, or a type of asset, or a security, of course, which is always the most kind of regulated type of asset. And that when that's the case, then obviously NFT will have all the features of that asset, and therefore can be regulated that way. So the challenge for regulators will be, what is needed, if anything is needed, what is needed on top of the existing regulation that exists today. And some regulators and some lawyers may think there is no need for additional regulation, because basically NFT will represent an asset that is already regulated somewhere, or not, but has already a kind of an environment to it. And if there is a need, maybe it could be for these new assets that NFT enables, like for example, land on a metaverse. Land on a metaverse is not something that is really regulated, because it falls into other boxes like maybe digital assets, virtual assets, and so forth. But if land on a metaverse becomes, a huge market, and it's already quite large, but let's say it becomes much larger, then there may be a need somewhere to regulate that, maybe. But again, I think NFTs are very much linked to the assets they represent, and that makes them quite special for many reasons, but also for the regulations.
Yeah, we have the first question from the public. It could be possible that NFT will be regulated in a unique way for all over the world, or it will depend on a specific country?
Well, if I may answer,
yeah, go. I have someone at the door, and I will explain you later. Please reply.
Okay, so I will try to answer this. I think it will depend from the specific country, and let me tell you why. Normally, there are some international gremium which release what we call soft law, which then the states apply. An example for this is money laundering. We have an international gremium which is called Financial Action Task Force, which issues regulation, which is then applied by all states over the world. And if you don't apply this regulation, then you are on a blacklist, and you will receive. You will have difficulties to have relationship with other states. This applies because money laundering, it's, what can I say, a problem which all the world has, and you need a common way to apply these rules. Now, for NFT, of course, this moment, that's not the case. So it's not something of worldwide relevance, which will require the creation of an organization, an international body, which will issue standards, laws, which all the other states will apply. So I suppose that if some regulation comes, even if I agree with Eddie, the NFT at the end, they represent an asset which is probably already regulated, and therefore they will just say, oh, we apply the same regulation, because it's not the way the way you offer this asset is regulated. If it's the same asset, it's the same asset. But as far as we don't have such international agreement, there will be, every country will try to do a little bit how they feel it is the best for their regulation, and so we will see different regulation. Probably, I can imagine that it could happen something like we have seen with the token qualification, where Switzerland was one of the first cases where we tried to do a token qualification with the utility token, payment token, and asset token, which are the securities token. And then we have seen many other countries around Europe, at least, following the Swiss example. So I could imagine that if a countries will start to do a regulation, and this is a good regulation, the other country will, of course, take out the best of this regulation and apply it in their country. So I hope to see a level playing field in the regulations, since it's something very new, and normally we try to copy what the other countries are doing.
Thanks. I'm sorry for the problem.
Just wanted to add that, for example, it's okay, Amelia, no problem. It's fine.
I'm in quarantine, and so I have the police checking.
I just wanted to add that the US, for example. Okay.
So go.
Sorry, we have
go
a bit
on.
of a gap, so we talk over each other. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
I just want to say that with that question, if you look at the US, for example, in crypto, the already the US is going. There are different enforcement agencies like SEC, CFTC, controls account. You have FinCEN and so forth, and all these agencies look at crypto differently. So CFTC will look at crypto like a commodity in certain cases, FinCEN as money, then the IRS could look at it as a capital gains tax, so as a kind of a long-term asset. So you really have, unfortunately, right now, no, already not much apart from the anti-money laundering laws that Lars was mentioning. I would say you don't really have any homogeneous worldwide agreement on what, for example, already crypto is. And NFT brings a layer of complexity over that. So I think again, we because of the assets they represent, it's quite difficult to go into a standardized regulation.
Changing the topic and speaking about NFT more in general, what's the most interesting application for NFT according to your experience? Grant, if you want to.
I mean, I'm biased, so I of course think that the coolest one that's going to be done is in what is the largest and only limitless economy in mankind's history, which is going to be space. But to kind of take it back down to the roots, I think it's really interesting what's going to be happening in the music space. It's more complex. The tracking of the monetization and the sheer amounts of assets themselves is way more interesting and dynamic than the arts scene itself. And I think we see that in the general society and public, as far as how music is just a single, almost a part of a person's everyday life in general. And also that's originally how I got into it, was how can creators better empower themselves and better track, trace, and directly procure revenue from the users, as opposed to very untransparent middlemen controlling that aspect. So I'm not utopian in the sense that I think each artist now is going to be selling NFTs by themselves, et cetera, and that centralized parties are going to disappear. But it's even though the hype is dying down right now, it's entering its first little down phase right now, that it's a format that's here to stick, and there's projects that are just building more and more complexity and layers on top of it right now. So I'd say space and music would be my two places for it.
And Lars, you mentioned the student one. You heard about any other particular application you want to talk about?
Look, I heard a lot. If then this is feasible or will be done, it's another story. But there was someone also speaking about creating, again, if I think not the student, but think at football player, where now when you sell the football player between the teams, if you have an NFT of the football player or any kind of sports player, that it would make things easier to do all the economics behind a transaction with a football player or another sportsman. As I say at the beginning, I think NFTs just in their early infant age. So now we are using it a lot with arts or with music, but I think there are a lot of other models that we will discover in the future and that we will try to use it. And I mean, blockchain at the end of the story is something useful if you can automatize some action. So probably NFT will play a good role if we find a way to use them in a process where we can automatize this process without the needs of any human being behind it.
What about you, Eddie? What's your favorite NFT application, or what are your favorite projects?
Well, favorite projects are projects that I know quite well. So, for example, at the moment, they are mostly related around art, which, as we know, is one of the first use cases with NFTs. One of them is actually recoining patronage, art patronage. So, for example, collectors supporting artists even before the artwork has been done, for especially for a large artwork, like a fresco or a sculpture and so forth, or a large exhibition. So I think that's quite interesting because it's not only NFT to be sold once the artwork has been done, but it's also like the financing of the artist. It's quite similar in a way to crowdfunding, but it's a bit more direct. And again, the NFT, I think, is a good intermediary or a good proxy of the future artwork as well. So I think it's quite interesting there. And one patronage platform I'm close to is called nThe, nThe.art, launching this month, and they have a lot of patronage programs there. And the other area, so obviously art marketplaces. We're also building one on RSK, which is a specific blockchain, which is a sidechain to Bitcoin, which is also interesting because there are not many NFTs on Bitcoin today. And we know why, is because originally smart contracts, were not part so much of Bitcoin as much as, other blockchains. So therefore, EVM and smart contract blockchains are the ones for NFTs. And through RSK, you can do that on Bitcoin as well. And the other use case I would say that should come in the next few months or maybe next year are more, again, finance related. I think NFTs can represent a lot of diverse financial assets and maybe, again, go back to financing, crowdfunding, and so forth. I think we should see more projects in that area at the frontier of DeFi and NFTs, I guess.
Thanks. This is a question I ask to all our panelists. Do you think, as Grant mentioned, now the hype is going down? Do you think we were in a phase of a bubble before? Grant, if you want to reply.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But I mean, that's how these things kind of happen. You have a few projects in there that are going to be here to stay. I think NBA Top Shot obviously created a certain sort of model and success for, things that I used to do as a kid, which is have sports cards and stuff like that. Obviously the art market was massively inflated to the point to where it turned, I think, a lot of people off, to where they stopped supporting or looking into truly good quality projects or art. Because they just started treating it all as, it even got to like meme levels on the internet, where it's like, hey bro, pitch me your NFT. That it was like the Dogecoin thing where, I was at Atlanta airport a few weeks ago and I heard about 10 people say Dogecoin around me. And if like the general mass public is kind of blurting out these things, then, it's probably hitting something that's kind of gonna pop. So most definitely it did, but that's part of the game. I always tell people, like, just look at Bitcoin. Like, it went through the same things. It got to its initial hype, and then it kind of stabilizes over time a little bit, to where it just becomes, oh yeah, it fell like the stock market fell, or whatever the approach may be. So towards me, I work with a lot of fine arts galleries and collectors, kind of these collective organizations that really run the art world. And, they're looking into this. There's going to be a transition where it's going to be like the digital storefront for fine art. Just like when you buy gold, you don't actually hold the gold at your house, right? So the whole connection of being able to turn art, for example, into a liquid asset, which is one of the most illiquid assets in the world right now, is revolutionary by itself. So yeah, it's hype, but it's going to happen a few more times too.
Lars, what's your opinion about it?
But I agree with Grant. I think we've seen all the innovation that we've seen also in the past. There is a first bubble, then it can down, and then it grow up with also maturity. So I don't see it will be. It was probably at the beginning a sort of small bubble, but I don't think that the NFT period is over. I think we discussed all here that there are a lot of applications that we can see for NFT tokens. Um, Not only in arts, but also in arts it will remain. And just thinking loud, if you there was some years ago here in Switzerland, we found the old man died, and there was a lot of paintings which we discovered that was coming from the Jews at the Nazi time. So think about having all these paintings with an NFT, and we would know exactly who these paintings would belong to. So only that is also a good application for NFT, which I think we will see in the next future. So I really don't think that the time for NFT is over. It will just become more mature and it will grow up in time.
What about you, Eddie? What's your opinion about the bubble hype around NFT?
Yeah, yes, yeah, of course. We are going through the usual cycle, like Grant was saying. We have seen this many times in crypto. We need first, kind of success stories around NFTs, which always, or let's say the new tech, and that's what has happened. A bit of FOMO, which is normally happen in this space as well, and then we get to a more stable level. People start to think more about what what is important. I would say is that bubble or not bubble. If you're buying NFTs, and I'm buying a few, you buy what you like. I mean, I know that many people buy because it's related to a potential upside and so forth, which is fine. But I think if you buy something that you like and you feel that there is a kind of an emotional attachment of some sort, then that makes the whole process much easier. And then you can feel, let's say, a bit more free from the bubble problems and the price issues.
We are seeing on the screen the images of the NFT Expo. I want to remind everybody to play with the video game inside the NFT Expo on the Nemesis. So thank you everybody for your time. Thanks a lot for this panel. And I invite everyone to play the game and check all the stands with the artists. And talk soon for the next panel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.